Hello, and welcome to POGO 511, Introductory Data Analysis for Policy and Government. This is Video 9, Central Tendency. Please take a moment to connect with the outcomes as a result of watching this video. We're going to spend the next few minutes reviewing all of these concepts, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. So in terms of central tendency, this is the first family of univariate statistics, and it's used oftentimes for descriptive statistics to describe characteristics either of a sample in terms of the participant profile, or to actually provide some numerical values for certain questions that may be included within a measure or an assessment or a survey. So researchers find it really helpful to utilize central tendency statistics and variables to display the mean, mode, and median within their data set. And as I mentioned, this could be used to display information about the demographic profile of your sample, so the gender, the age, the household income, and other information. But it also could provide information relative to responses on an actual instrument or measure. So we're going to review the mean, median, and mode in these next few slides. The mean is simply the average. It's sometimes referred to as the average value of the set of numbers, or just as an average. So you'll see at the very bottom here, I've done a little equation that says the sum of a series of observations divided by the number of observations. So one example for like the mean could be you had 10 students take a test, you add up all of their total scores, and then you divide it by the number 10 because that's how many students took the assessment. A few things to be mindful of when you're calculating the mean. When you're utilizing questions in your survey or assessment about anything like monetary related, whether it's income or salary, or think about like the value of homes, the mean may not be the most appropriate statistic to utilize, because as you can imagine, if you're including the entry-level position, salary, as well as the CEO, there's going to be a huge difference in values across those two values. So it may not be the most the best utilization of the mean score to represent income. As we shift gears now to median, this describes the middle value in a series of values. So let's say you ask folks, well, how many vegetables do you eat each day, or something like that? You would get all of the answers, 5, 13, 9, 7, 1, 9, and so forth. What you would do to calculate the median is put them in order and then determine what the middle value is. So that's what the median is showcasing here. And this is appropriate when you're utilizing variables that are continuous, so continuous and ordinal level variables. So I think about things like a scale, or you know, what a student's assessment score would be on a pre-test or a post-test. That would be a great way to utilize the median statistic. So as I say here on the third bullet, the median is that half of the observations lie above the median and half of the observations fall below the median. So essentially in a median, you're looking for the midpoint. The mode, which is our final example in measures of central tendency here, is the most frequent value of a variable. So this could be displayed here if you've got potential values anywhere between 2 and 10. Well, what was the distribution of those scores? And the most frequent value in this case is the folks who entered the number 6 as their response choice. Oh, I just advanced. So measures of dispersion are really helpful in terms of seeing, what is the distribution of scores across a variable. So this is the second family of univariate statistics that we'll review now. Range is a wonderful tool to help provide insight about where your scores were on a particular question on an assessment or a measure. So the range is the difference between the lowest and highest value. So if you were to ask a question to get at some of the demographic information of your sample relative to how long someone has been employed by their current workplace or current organization, you may get the following responses: 2, 2, 3, 5, 5, 7, and 8. Those would be the responses that would constitute your distribution, right? And when you're looking at the range, you're looking at the lowest value and the highest value. So in this case, if we look at the example on this slide, the lowest value is the number 2 and the highest value is the number 8. So if you were to report out what the range of scores was, you would say 2 to 8. And finally, when you're thinking about the frequency distribution, it's helpful to think about it through the range and the frequency that a variable has in terms of its values. When you're thinking about some of the programs that are offered here at George Mason University, we think about project management, and there's a wonderful program in knowledge management that's offered by George Mason University. This would be helpful to utilize frequency distributions when thinking about rankings and comparisons. So typically when you're looking at the frequency distribution, different data visualizations are utilized in addition to tables, but data visualizations relative to pie graphs and horizontal bar graphs and stacked bar graphs to really display the frequency of the data. The narrative portion of reports only take you so far. So oftentimes researchers will both utilize the narrative to describe the data, but also enhance it and supplement that information by utilizing data visualizations to really illuminate the data. So I'm going to show you some of those examples next. So here's one data visualization, which is a horizontal bar graph. And as it says, it's a bar graph and it's displayed horizontally. You may have come across some vertical bar graphs. Both are wonderful examples of data visualizations to showcase your data. So in the narrative for this report, you could say the highest percentage of responses, 45%, attend a four-year college or university. Very few participants, 2%, engage in a gap year between high school and enrolling in a post-secondary education. So that would be one way that you could showcase that data. Another example is a pie graph, and as you can see here, the same information is displayed in terms of the intentions after high school graduation, but as you can see, it's the same information only shown in a pie chart. So it's really up to you as the researcher to determine which type of visualization may be most appropriate to display the data. I personally prefer, in this particular example, the horizontal bar graph because I think it allows you to really see both the numerical value at the end of the bar graph, and it's also sorted high to low. So it takes some of the cognitive thinking out of it, the hard work that someone who's new to your report would have to do to access the information. It's clearly stated here, it's pretty clean in its format, and it allows the user to see the highest percentage of responses and the lowest percentages of responses fairly quickly. Whereas in this one, you have to think a little bit more. You can see that 45% is the highest response, but it's in that goldenrod, mustardy color, and you have to look down at the bottom of the legend to see which one that may be. So it just takes a few extra steps to do the same work. So it's entirely up to you which visualization may be best. And that's what's really cool about being a researcher, because you can make those decisions. And then finally, we have it in a table format. As you can see here, this is a data visualization to showcase the differences in mean, mode, and median overall, as well as for men and women. So when you think about the data, you can see it displayed here in terms of the average of actual retirement ages. So as you think about this information collectively, I'd like you to consider which techniques may be most appropriate to describe the sample that would be worked with or provided services and programming through the program that you're interested in exploring this semester. And what statistic, if any, may be helpful in displaying information and describing trends about your sample as in terms of their demographic profile, but also with the measure that you plan on utilizing to obtain feedback from that group or to conduct some kind of research study. So not only what statistic might be helpful, what data visualization could help support conveying the findings of a particular statistical test that you implement within your study. As we close today, I'm just going to scoot back to the first slide about the outcomes. I hope you've found this information helpful as you consider central tendency, measures of dispersion, frequency distribution, and data visualizations. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.